As the rioters reached the top of the stairs, they were within 100 feet of where the vice president was sheltering with his family. And they were just a feet away from one of the doors to this chamber, where many of you remained at that time. I also want to show you a different angle from the security footage of Officer Goodman's acts. This video is on the second floor of the Senate wing of the Capitol. The red dot, as you recall, represents the insurrectionists. The blue dot is Officer Goodman, who led the mob away from the chamber just minutes earlier. On the left-hand side of the video, just inside the hallway, is the door to the Senate chamber. And watch how Officer Goodman provokes the rioters and purposefully draws them away from the door to the Senate chamber and towards the other officers waiting down the hall. The rioter seen carrying a baseball bat in this video is the same one we saw moments ago breaching the window on the first floor. While all of this was going on, Vice President Pence was still in the room near the Senate chamber. It was not until 2:26 that he was evacuated to a secure location. This next security video shows that evacuation. His movements are depicted by the orange dot in our model. The red and blue dots represents the location where the mob and Officer Goodman were, and where Officer Goodman led the mob away from the chamber just moments ago. You can see Vice President Pence and his family quickly move down the stairs. The Vice President turns around briefly as he's headed down. As Pence was being evacuated, rioters started to spread throughout the Capitol. Those inside helped other rioters break in through doors in several locations around this entire building. And the mob was looking for Vice President Pence because of his patriotism, because the Vice President had refused to do what the President demanded and overturn the election results. During the assault on the Capitol, extremists reportedly coordinated online and discussed how they could hunt down the vice president. Journalists in the Capitol reported they heard rioters say they were looking for Pence in order to execute him.
Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, family. I'm Preacher Miles, host of the S.O.S. A Shout Out Show on kind of a laid back Wednesday. I hope everybody's having an exceptional day. You know, Wednesday is what we like to call hump day in the middle of the week. For those that don't know, for those that do know, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Usually about 3:30, 4 o'clock on Wednesday, you kind of feel like you can make the rest of the week, and I feel that way. So apologies up front. I'm fighting a little bit of a cold. went to a show last night, and that joint was outside, and I had no idea. But it's okay. It was a good show, good vibes, and all that good stuff. I opened the show with a clip with the House impeachment managers that are discussing this whole thing about insurrection with former President Donald J. Trump. And I thought it was interesting, not so much what she said, but really how she said it. And I'm not just saying how she said it, but I'm saying that very purposeful, very dutiful. It reminds me of a parent, a very didactic effort in explaining to people this is what happened, but in the same tone saying that this is wrong. You know, in my 50s, I've adapted this thing that I can't afford to suffer fools or hypocrites. Starting with myself, I can't afford my own foolishness, and I can't afford to be a hypocrite. You know, if you call yourself out, and life will move forward more. And as I was watching this clip, it was interesting watching Sister Plaskett explain to people in a very visceral way, like this was a murderous group. This is not a walk through the park. This is not people who are misguided by their emotions, but these are people who are, for lack of a better word, trying to exact or change an outcome of something through violence. Through violence. And what I would like to get into, because our topic today is how are you doing in all of this? How are you doing in all of this? You know, with politics and politicians, it's so much about positioning and who has the upper hand and all that. But I think it's really, really important to ask the question, how are you doing in all of this? So I want to start it off because it's really not abating. It's really not ending. I'm going to show you a clip of a person who runs QAnon Anonymous, which is almost like Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous for people who have to de-escalate from addiction. And we've talked about that you know, I framed a lot of stuff that Trump did as, you know, people simplified as right or wrong. I'm like, no, this is an addictive personality. I mean, of course, I went on a deep end and started talking about Satan, started talking about Shaitan, explaining to people, you know, Shaitan does these evil acts, but he has leeway to do so. There's an agreement in place. You know, he's allowed to test creation, people in creation. But other people are not allowed to test. They don't have an agreement to do so, which makes them different. And even Shaitan, and you know, everything he does, it's by, of course, suggestion. He frames an argument. And if you're in a mindset where you're not able to understand that argument, then of course you're going to fold. It happens. We've all done something and been somewhere like you just slap yourself outside the hands. And what was I thinking there? You know, I could have just done this. I could have just left it alone. You know, hindsight, like I say, is 20/20. And the reason I say it's 20/20 because 20/20 indicates that there's a perfect vision. There's perfect vision. You're able to see this thing and frame it. So before I get started, shout out to anybody that's coming out on the show for the first time. I see some people already in the queue. These are my stars in the building. I'm going to reemphasize that we're going to have a show. I think it's the 16th or 17th. That's going to be our 300th consecutive episode. I would like people to come on the show. I normally have you in the comment section, but I would like for you to come on the show. I'll give you a link, and you're going to be the actual stars of the show. You'll be in my space, and I'll be able to ask you questions, things like how are you doing and all of this. And if you're new to the show, we appreciate you coming on. You know, I never want to be a person that underestimates kindness, attention, and how you spend your time. That's a big deal with me, how you spend your time. As a comedian, we talk about timing, but literally, it's really about how you spend your time. And if you're new to the show, don't feel like you just have to sit and be a spectator. You don't. I see people watching the show. You can get in the comment section and you can express yourself. One of the big things that's happening these days, brothers and sisters, with this whole thing, if you will. Yes, the show is going to be a week from today. Thank you, Satana. The 17th. One of the things that's really, really big is that we've gotten into these arguments and these toxic relationships whereby we forget how important it is as individuals to express, identify, and own our own agency. You have to be able to say for yourself, this is what I believe. Not in groups like the Proud Boys and things like that, because that's dangerous. Those are addictive personalities that seek out other addictive personalities. In the concept of argument, if you're a student of knowledge, you know that when you interact with society, when you interact with creation, it's important to know that when you're discussing consciousness or expressing knowledge, it's with the idea that it's not absolute, which means I'm right with the possibility of you being wrong, or you're right with the possibility of me being wrong, meaning that there's elasticity in an argument. And in that space of elasticity, brothers and sisters, are things that you can apply, like mercy, kindness, compassion, empathy. And these things are really, really important because we just don't have them. That's why politics is not working right now, because politics has become absolute. For me to be right, you must be wrong, right? That's the only way it works. For me to be right, it must be wrong. It's broken down into fragmentation of media sources, where you get your information from. People look at folks that storm the Capitol and say, where do these people come from? Where have they been living? They've been living in front of their TVs, absorbing information that does nothing but confirm their ideas. That's why they call it theories. They confirm their ideas. And they don't go outside of that core. What they do is seek other addictive personalities who are going to, again, reinforce what I think, or more importantly, that I don't have to think. Okay. So please let me go through. My stars in the building. Of course, we got Sister Ree. How you doing, Sister Ree? I appreciate it. And I always talk about people who are just kind. Sister Ree is very kind and giving, and just she's my mom's daughter, and you can point to people and understand that when they speak of their agency or the placement in creation, that it begins and ends with this idea that kindness will lead me. So I want to say that about Sister Ree. Also about Sister Satana, our I really want to say our project manager, our consultant producer, who's always really, really, I want to say, nurturing in terms of how we put a show together. Last night, I got to meet a guy named Joe Rogan. And Joe Rogan is known for being the host, the MC for a lot of MMA fights. He has a podcast. It's just, every podcast he does is like, I don't know, 1 million, 2 million, views. Like, this guy he's a millionaire doing podcasts. And I met him last night, and I said, would you mind if I asked you some questions? I asked him about podcasting. You know what was interesting? The guy was so down to earth, just talking about, he didn't know it was going to work. All he focused on was, how can I be myself on a consistent basis in terms of how people saw him. So even if you didn't disagree, if you didn't like what he said, or you disagree with what he said or something like that, or an interview he gave, he said the idea is to put it that a person has an honest engagement with him. Amazing. So big shout out, much love to my little brother, Johnny Thomas, and his lovely wife, Yolanda Thomas, is also on the show. How are y'all like in different spaces? But it's okay. I appreciate it. The Thomas family has been a part of my family since, let's just say for majority of my life, and I'm blessed to have them in that space. Little brother, thank you so much for coming on the show. Wa alaikum assalam, rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Yes, sir. Allah's God. Keep it simple. Sister Satana is a part of our Shout Out Show family, all the way out of New Jersey. Wa alaikum assalam, rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for trying to give me the rest of those blessings, sister. May Allah be pleased with you, guide you, and expand your heart, and give you sincerity and success. Thank you so much. My main man, Altaf from Toronto. This is fun, but it's just because as a comedian, when you first start doing comedy, you don't really do comedy in the clubs. What you do is you introduce acts. You introduce information. The acts on the show who are going to do much more time than you, make more money than you, but it was an important role because you knew how to set the show so that the comedians could be successful. And it's funny when I go through my stars in the building, I think it's amazing that you guys actually helped me set the tone of the show. Like I have an idea for a show, of course, and I'm going to do that. But going through all this and remember everybody's history and things like that, and things you said, not so much today, but in other broadcasts, it's just amazing because I feel like I have relationships with everybody. So I thank you for that. All the way from Toronto too. Wa alaikum assalam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, man. In the TO. I think no. I was about to say your Raptors play tonight. Actually, they do. They play tonight. It's supposed to be a big game because it has two Japanese basketball players who are going to, I guess, face off. You know, basketball is such an international game, and I always thought it was special that Toronto won a title because they're a very international city, very just eclectic. If you ever go to Canada, go to Toronto, go to Vancouver. I mean, it's different vibes, man. I really love the people. Sister Rabina, how are you, sister? My UK sister, always tuning in, trying to give us good information, and like I call her, official, unofficial research director. Because I don't know if you guys know, a lot of times she sends me stuff on Instagram, Instagram, and sometimes on Facebook Messenger, and she just kind of, in a very nice way, populates things that maybe, as I say, may be really, really interesting to talk about on the show. And we've talked about certain things on the show, and it's been directly attributed to Sister Rabina. So thank you so much. So, and let me get I'm going to give a shout out right here. All right, thank you for the chicken soup, Ree. I need it. Now, Yolanda Thomas. Wa alaikum assalam rahmatullah barakatuh. She goes, your sister-in-law, Yolanda. See how black folk are. I see Yolanda Thomas. All of a sudden she think I don't forgot she's my sister-in-law. But that's my sister. She's going to make sure. I think she's trying to make sure I ain't losing it. But I appreciate you. You know I love you. And I got to get back this soon because I just miss y'all. It's fun. I got to get back because I had such a good time last time. Even though it was brief, it was a blessing. Though it was brief, it's always a blessing to see my Thomas family, including my nephews. I got to see Jordan. I haven't seen her in a minute. Sister Rabina, I am doing great as I am over the pond dealing with lunatics in the parliament. It's a fight every day, sister. It is a fight every day. Thank you, Satana. Everybody, the 300th anniversary show, 300 show anniversary is going to be next week, 17th, a week from today. I want everybody, if you don't mind, I'm going to put up the email address. Send in your email, please, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to send a link out, and you're actually going to be on the show. So what we have to do is I have to organize it if it's more than 10 people, because we can't have that many people in. Otherwise, we'll have people in the queue. You can watch the show, but I have to bring you in a little bit. And I kind of want to just, I feel like old folks, man. I said, I got to lay eyes on you. I know you'd shout out show family, stars, but I got to lay eyes on you. And JT has heard me say that before. Sometimes I just show up on my brother's doorstep. I got to look at you, make sure you're okay. Same thing with Ree. My brother Doug Robinson, my main man Doug Robinson. I thought of you yesterday when I was talking to Joe Rogan. Doug, and he listened to the opening of, he watched a little bit of Love Supreme and the sound, and I said that was my man, and I pointed you out. I gave you a big shout out from Joe Rogan. Shout out for Delegate Stacey Plaskett, who was the sister who was giving a talk earlier. Well, not talk, she was making a presentation about what happened on January 6th. Very, very, and I want to talk about that, but she was very, very deliberate with her words. Extremely deliberate with her words. Brother Yusuf, wa alaikum assalam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Brother, I appreciate you, man. Thank you for coming back on the show. It's always good to see you, man. I hope everything's going well for you. Houston is treating you right, but always a pleasure having you on the show. So if I haven't said I appreciate you. Now I appreciate you. Okay. What we got here? Just released earlier, the deputy dropped the lawsuit against the Raptors president. Yeah. That guy Messiah, I didn't really go for that. I don't know what happened with that. It was kind of foolish, but I'm glad they dropped that. He's a nice guy. All right, everybody. The email is permissiblelaughter@gmail.com. It's permissiblelaughter@gmail.com. So, Sister Satana, thank you so much for putting up your email. But if you don't mind, I'm humbly asking that you send it to this email, permissiblelaughter.com, because we're gonna have to get a list and do a spreadsheet. Because if it's more than 10 people that day, I have to allot time. So I might have to have 3 or 4 people on in a block and 3 or 4 people on a block. But I'm going to put everybody on, inshallah. All right? So if you don't mind, send that to permissiblelaughter@gmail.com. I think we're going to take email addresses up to, I want to say maybe noon or 1 o'clock on Wednesday. Noon or 1 o'clock on Wednesday, because I have to show some kind of discipline and cut it off. Landy, I want you to come on the show. That's Yolanda, everybody. I call her Landy. I've been calling you Landy for years, and you let me do it. And I do it like an old lady, like, Landy. And if I've ever irritated with you with that voice, I apologize. It's all in fun. I have to give you a hard time because I don't get to see you as much. But the question of the day, brothers and sisters, is how are you doing in all of this? There's been an absence of empathy in the world of politics because you're dealing with a very, very toxic environment. And it's not that the environment is toxic. It's just that it's toxic to the point where it can't correct itself. Like, it literally has to wash out. Like, there's no stopgap. It's like when you're falling down a mountain, there are no leaves to grab hold of before you actually get to the cliff and fall off. Like, this thing literally, I feel, has to just fall off the cliff. And I tell folks, it really speaks to how we are formulating what we want society to look like. Like, there's 2 different things that are framing up. There's politics, and then there's the real community that it's supposed to serve. Politics, the real community that it's supposed to serve. And we have a dearth that we're watching political structure, politicians, 3 branches of government that literally don't have anything or don't want anything to do with us. I'm going to be honest with you guys. When I first saw the tape of all these white people jumping over walls during the insurrection, I literally thought somebody had made a remake of Planet of the Apes and they filmed it in a location in Iowa, because I ain't seen no black people. So I'm like, they had filmed Planet of the Apes in Nebraska. And it felt that way. And even the conversation you're having now, this is not about you. This is not about you. It's something constitutional. That has nothing to do with us. I just stated yesterday. Big ups to Georgia for investigating Trump for a criminal complaint, because that's what this is. It's a criminal piece. And as we continue to move forward, I'm asking how are we doing in this? Because I have to say, for myself in some regards, I don't mean that I'm cynical. Like, I was talking to my mom earlier today, and she was venting a little bit. And I did something, I called her back. I apologized. She was venting a little bit. And for a minute, I kind of didn't give her the mom leeway to vent. And I was in my own mind like, Mom, we need to move on. What's next? This subject matter is, what's next? And, it wasn't good. My mom, she deserved better. And I called her back to let her know, you deserve better. But I explained to her, I said, I'm in a space right now, and I don't know if you're in this space. I'm in a space right now. When people talk to me, I literally count words. Like, I literally count words. Like, if you take more than a certain amount of words to get to what you're talking about, or you take a certain amount of words because you can't get to what you're talking about, it's like I shut you down. Like, in my mind, I might not even tell you. I'm just like, oh, okay. Because I feel like there's an economy of language that's just being wasted. And I feel like, when I watch this lady, Delegate Plaskett, speak, I got excited because she didn't waste words. They say mince words. That's one thing. She didn't waste words. And we've gotten to this process, if you will, this formulaic process, if you will, where it's okay to waste words. One of the worst performances I've ever seen by a lawyer was yesterday, and it was Trump's lawyers. It was Trump's lawyers that you rambled for 45 minutes, and you didn't say a damn thing. Forget a first-year law student. I could find a kid from 6th grade and tell him to make a compelling argument, and he would have been able to do it better, or she would have been able to do it better than what I saw. And it even goes to the fact that why are we even making allowances for these people? In real court, especially for African Americans, it's always been difficult because you have your story and your rendition, but you have to put it in the language of the courts so that the lawyers can have a conversation without you, and then they can have a conversation with the judge. Let me say that again. You have your language, you have your story, your narrative, but you have to put it in the capsule of legalese so that they can have a proceeding which ultimately moves beyond what your needs are. It doesn't engage you. And we sat there and watched this thing, and I'm like, I can't handle it. I really can't handle it. Sister Tana said, I said, how you doing and all this? She said, she's doing fine. How many out there in the comment section, how many of you are doing fine? I'm doing okay. I'm a little, I have my days, but for the most part, I'm blessed, alhamdulillah. In fact, I decided to change the background to say Allahu Akbar. Of course, I co-opted that, and I said, Allah is God, keep it simple. But Allah is the greatest. God is the greatest. That's the thing that makes it all make sense for me. It's interesting to look at situations, scenarios where people really actively work to move God out of the picture, move God out of the solution. As a comedian, that's probably the best material that I can engage in, because I'm like, oh, this person really thinks that they are going to get this thing done on their merits. And then I can just kind of watch the chips fall where they may. What's going on, Brother Samir? You doing dandy, alhamdulillah. And I had to ask the question, how are y'all all doing it is? Because if you watch the news, if you watch Fox News, if you watch MSNBC, even CNN, the predominant feeling is like, we're not doing well. We're not doing well. Miss Kate said she's doing super. Yeah. But why isn't it on TV? I'm going to show you guys something. Bear with me. I'm going to show you guys something. And think about what I said earlier about how people are addicted to things. I'm going to show this clip, and then I'm going to come back. Hold on a moment, please. Because I think it's important. Because these are the things that are sadly dominating our news cycle. And nobody's talking about it.
Joining us now is Julian Field, founder, producer, and co-host of the podcast QAnon Anonymous, which works to dissect, dispel, and debunk these conspiracy theories. Julian, great to have you on. Can you explain the convoluted conspiracy theory that has begun to take hold that involves March 4th. What are they expecting to happen on March 4th?
Good morning, Allison, and thanks for having me. The March 4th theory actually comes from sovereign citizen beliefs. Now, in the past, we haven't seen such a huge overlap, but in this case, certain QAnon followers have borrowed whole cloth from a belief that the last legitimate president was the 18th president. So this goes back to 1871, and this is the belief that Trump will be actually inaugurated as our 19th president. Now, of course, this is illogical since he was the 45th. But what they believe is that there has been no country known as the United States ever since it was unstuck from the gold standard, and they don't believe that any amendment past the 16th Amendment is valid. So they essentially believe that Ulysses S. Grant was the last valid American president. They believe, I think there's different beliefs, obviously, of what will happen on that day, but I think many are expecting a ceremony, and that ceremony might be accompanied in their mind by what QAnon believers call the storm. That would be, as described a little earlier on the segment, the rounding up and often military tribunals, for leading Democrats, but also some celebrities they believe falsely to be part of this secret pedophile cabal. So essentially, people are still in this belief that Trump will come back and will become the
White people need to stop. Just stop. White people need to stop. This to the point, this is so bad right here. You usually find like a lost black person that jump into it like, I'm here in the house. I don't even think you can find a lost black person to think that Ulysses S. Grant was the last president, legitimate president. You see how this thing goes, brothers and sisters? It's addictive. It's just addictive. He's talking about people are basically QAnonaholics going through this whole thing. And the scary part is, they think that they're correct. They think that they're correct. And I have to say this before I mention our sponsor, BeFinancialIndependent.com. We can't be complicit anymore by looking the other way, going, to you be yours and to me be mine. It doesn't work anymore. People are not working at that finite attitude, and that's a whole thing. This guy said a belief. That's why I played the clip. He said, he said there's a belief. See how that is? Samir, I was having this conversation about secularism, how people want secularism to replace religion. Like, secularism wants to replace religion or be as close to it as it can, mirror it without it actually being religion. Meaning that it doesn't want to have the accountability and accoutrements of things like faith, things like creedal statements, things like destination of faith, destination of religious individual policy, and I want to say accountability. Accountability. Like, people leave the church, people leave the mosque, and they go into the secular world, and they can say, hey, I'm a Jew, I'm a Christian, I'm a Muslim. The secular world doesn't care. You can be whatever you want to, as long as when the bell is sounded, you do what they say the way they say it, because after a point in time, you can't go back over to the religious world. Not that the religious world doesn't invite you, but it's foreign to you. You've made it foreign to you. And this is a situation this guy was talking about with this ridiculous, it's a criminal trial you're supposed to be having. New York has it right. Georgia's about to have it right. We're having a trial, brothers and sisters. He can't go to jail. This is not a criminal trial. And even then, we're still trying to frame this thing like we're going to get justice. You're not going to get justice. Not going to get justice. Yeah, I talked about a student of mine, former student, committed several crimes. He's doing life. He's doing life. And I wish him the best, but it's not the best. I hope, he makes quality use of the fact that he's going to die in prison. I mean, his release date was the year 3042. JT and I were talking about this. And JT knows him from our first year of teaching. But that to the side, it's like, but you have this space where people are, again, trying to frame secularism. And that's what this is with this trial. That's why I like this Sister Plaskett, because she's very, very direct. The clip I just showed you is a response to people who can't get it right. My father said this, and he said, and he's not a racist. My dad is not racist. But my dad said, son, one thing about white people, when they get a strategy, they were driving it to the ground. And I'm like, yeah. Trump drove Stop the Stealing to the ground. And I say into the ground, you know why? Because he created graves. And now people find themselves in graves, digging their own graves. And there's a rule when you dig your own grave. If you throw the dirt up in the air and it comes back on your head, you're not doing it right. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and get this done. Let me take care of this, because you got to take care of your sponsors, because they take care of us. So this segment of the show is proudly sponsored by BeFinancialIndependent.com. Again, that's BeFinancialIndependent.com. You can go to the website, which I would suggest because it has a contact page, or you can call 1-800-679-3175. Again, that's BeFinanciallyIndependent.com, or you can call 1-800-679-3175. That way you have opportunity to talk to Miss Cade, who I like to say is the Harriet Tubman of financial freedom, making sure she gets people and leads them away from the slavery of debt. And there is a lot of debt out there, brothers and sisters. So get your house right. Get your financial house right. While nobody's looking. Don't wait till it's a crisis where you don't have any latitude. You don't have any space to move. As my mother and I talk, we say, you got to pull the goalie. Pull the goalie while you have opportunity to make moves and you have more options, if you will. Don't wait till your situation where now you're one-dimensional in terms of your options, in terms of your choices, okay? So check it out. Again, that's 1-800-679-3175, or go to BeFinanciallyIndependent.com. Okay, who we got here? I follow on social, but hear my mom talk about it. Hey, Samir, you give mom a big hug, brother. Okay. Well, your mom is old school, but so is mine, man. Big ups to old school moms. If you got a old school mom, give her a hug today, or give her a call and put the phone on speaker and just listen to her talk. Just don't say nothing. All right. All right. And again, like I said, everybody, make sure you check out. Make sure you check out BeFinanciallyIndependent.com, 1-800-679-3175. So listen, that's the show for today. I hope you enjoyed yourself. Apologies, I'm a little under the weather, but I'm feeling better. And whatever duas you can send my way, I appreciate it. And big shout out to Joe Rogan, who told everybody, thanks for coming on my podcast. That's Joe Rogan. And a big shout out to my little brother, Dave Chappelle, who was gracious last night with his time and his energy. Much love to you, little brother. All right, everybody, I want you to take care of yourself. I will see you sooner than later, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is The Shadow Show. Take care. Hey, everybody, this is your brother, Preacher Moss. Listen, I hope that you enjoyed your shout-out show experience. We'll be back with the next show, the next shout-out show. A simple ask before you go, please help your brother out. Click that subscribe button, click that notify button, and I'll see you again on this side of the microphone. You probably wonder what that smell is. That's me. I smell good. And the reason I smell good is because I use oils from Tarif Attar. So I'm not saying you can't smell good. I'm not even saying you stink. I'm saying you have the opportunity to smell exquisite. Check out tarifattar.com for some of the best oils and scents in town.